Hey, welcome to this week's Happy in 15. Today's topic is human as a sensor. Why human as a sensor? Well, we are all about human-centric IT, and in the center of that is human feelings, human feeling and experience in services. So, if we look how we describe human as a sensor, it's basically what we are talking about is the IT end users in the center of everything. And why they are better sensors than something else? Well, let's dig into it. So Sami, I think the first thing that we are saying here that humans are sensitive to circumstances.
Yeah, I think the idea here is that when whatever is the situation an employee is, they just have their opinion and their honest opinion of things. They don't have any reason to lie. They are helping IT to understand what was their experience and what is important for them in that experience, or what might make that even better. And I think in the kind of modern IT world, there are so much changing in this whole experience all the time, then you just have to measure it continuously and understand those end users continuously. And but the easy thing is that you don't have to give us instructions about how we should be feeling, or if you try to do that, you will fail.
Yeah.
So kind of it's not about managing our expectations. That is quite often what we hear when we have to manage the experience or kind of manage the expectations.
Yeah.
We should be managing the experience, not managing the expectations so much.
Yeah.
And I think, listen really what these guys are thinking.
Yeah. And I think something about the circumstances, it depends, like you said, that things are changing. Yeah. So it might depend, on the day of the month, what is my situation? Am I in a rush with this one or am I not? Yeah. And this is maybe something that, for example, if you would be measuring the devices or the processes, they wouldn't understand that in these circumstances, it doesn't matter if you deliver that service a bit slower or if that service is a bit slower, but in the other circumstances, it has a huge impact.
Yeah, I think there was one customer, I don't remember if we have reference right, so let's not name the customer in this case, but what they found out is that for the financial people, the end of month, the experience and expectation was totally different than it was during the rest of the month. So they really focused on making that experience on the critical moment very good.
Yeah.
And I think we all have seen, that we had to have experience last year and still the COVID situation. And if you look at the whole experience of people, it changed dramatically. But it's not only the COVID that is changing this experience dramatically. Digital transformation going on everywhere.
Yeah.
Continuous changes happening for those end users, and they are confused.
And I think that brings us to that never needs configuring. Like you said, who was measuring remote working before last year? Who is now measuring something that the digital transformation will change next month? I mean, the humans are always there. They're always experiencing whatever services you bring for them, whatever changes you make, they always experience them. If you change them, the location where they need to work, the devices they need to work with, they always experience them and they can say, is the experience good or bad?
Yeah, I think what really saw last year was the change in the remote work.
Yeah.
So again, our expectation in the beginning when the COVID hit was that we were happy if it just worked. There was enough VPN capacity and we were able to connect to our kind of work environments.
Yeah.
But now after a year, there has been certain changes in the whole thing, and now what we can experience there is that it's more and more about the cooperation is a bit harder, and kind of I don't have the two screens at home that I do have at the office.
Yeah.
So much more kind of a not so critical things, but from that end user's perspective, that individual perspective, things that really matter to their experience and their efficiency.
Yeah.
And I think the same, I have to maybe tell a story because
Go ahead.
Kind of a learning experience for myself. So like 4 years ago, when we were in the first events in UK, and in UK, when we tried to kind of start the discussion about experience of IT people, quite often we did hear that they will just complain.
Yeah.
They're always complaining. And at the time I was like, that is not true. But kind of, I now have understood that it is true. But is it a bad thing? No, because that we in IT should change kind of the attitude of that complaint is really valuable input to how we should be serving those people. And most of the end users, in fact, are quite happy with IT in overall.
Exactly.
So those people who are not is really kind of powerful source of how we can get better.
Yeah.
So we would be kind of appreciating that maybe even more.
Yeah.
And that's
And some of the really our key thing is about quantifying then the human sensor output. And we use two metrics.
Yeah.
One is the happiness and the other one is the productivity. So many times we get challenged that, well, they are just saying that they lost this much or that much. Actually, it's about these circumstances. So, the process might be always the same for the same service. The laptop might be as fast all the time, but it depends when you are needing it. And kind of when you ask from the employees how much of your time was wasted, they are pretty honest with it. We can see from the data that there's not like everybody's saying that I lose like the whole week because I had to reboot my laptop. No, but it's really about, like you took this example about the financial people. If they need to do something at the end of the month, end of the quarter, at that moment, those requests are very important. And actually what the customer did, they configured their service now so that they changed the priority during those weeks and those days higher to those tickets that are coming from certain people, because they knew that this is the circumstance where the human sensor said that we are failing, IT is failing. And that's how they were able to actually improve the service quality really fast.
Yeah, I think, and when thinking about human as a sensor here, it's very important to understand that there are those two aspects.
Yeah.
The feeling, the happiness of end users, which is of course related to, but still a different thing than the efficiency of that end user. And those are the two things we are measuring. And now more and more, I think our customers are taking the focus onto the efficiency, because it is even more directly pointing out what really is the kind of the priority of things, because you are giving feedback quite often for support services, and you're getting a personal service there, and you might be rating that quite high, but still you lost a lot of time because there was so many contact points and you had to kind of handle it with maybe several times and with people, but you had a connection with people which makes you a bit happier. But from the time you can look at it, okay, which are the services in support that are most critical, for example, for the retail shops, or whatever is the business unit you are looking this data from. So you can use the happiness to sort of overall thing, how happy the end users are, and recognize those areas where there is issues, but do the same from the productive perspective, and that is the business focus more than you should be having. And that's,
And I've seen this trend in many events now when different customer cases have been presented, like giving hours back to business. How can you give hours back to business if you don't have that metric and it's not measured from the people who are the business? So if you measure it from the processes, you didn't really give hours back to the business side. You only gave time back to your IT people. So
but it's about understanding how easy and how efficient we make our service to be for those end users, and that's, you cannot find that from anything else but asking the end users. I think now we come back to the best sensor. It's not only the best, it's the only one. So yes, of course, we can look at what is happening and how services are used from the technical perspective. But when it comes to the feeling, how much lost time there was, you cannot ask that from the computer. You have to ask it directly from the people who are very, very happy to tell that you. And I think that has been sometimes also kind of a challenge to us, that is too complicated question to ask about the lost productivity. Kind of, but ask those end users. They love that question because they typically say that now finally IT is interested about our efficiency, not only their own.
And actually talking with one banking customer, like they said that they have like hundreds of business processes. How would you measure hundreds of business processes? I mean, it would be so expensive to measure those things when you have humans, they are using the processes and they get just pointed it's these 15 processes that are the culprit of things. So it's also, I think, for CIOs and IT management teams understanding that just using humans, it's so much cheaper than trying to go the tech way that that normally tech people do, like you and me. We would rather have a huge technological solution of measuring something. But it's maybe something.
Maybe the order there should be that first you measure the end user experience, and then you find out, okay, these are the two processes causing issues. then measure those processes more detailed and you saved a lot of time because there was no point to kind of do that kind of a huge project for the rest of 28 processes.
Exactly. And I think that probably sums up this series or this episode. And I think it kind of leads us to one of the upcoming episodes. We'll have an episode about actually this people, process, technology, how these three things actually link together now when we understand why we want to measure from the human point of view.
And can I, Pasi, do one advertise?
Go ahead.
In our web pages, you will also find information on how happy people are to all of these different areas that we are talking about. So what is the average happiness of, let's say, the portal or applications or support services? Yeah. That might be quite interesting information for our audience. Yeah, we'll put the link there so everybody can find that page as well. All right, then thank you. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And as we say in HappySignals, so stay safe and stay happy.